The first thing I noticed was the silence, not inside the house, outside it, because home has a sound, even before you open the door, a feeling, familiar, recognizable. But that night, something felt wrong immediately. I stood there holding my bag in one hand and my keys in the other, tired, distracted, completely unprepared for what was about to happen. I slid the key into the lock, turned it, nothing. I frowned slightly, pulled it out, tried again, still nothing. For a second, I genuinely thought I was using the wrong key, until I looked closer. The lock was different, brand new. I paused, not reacting yet, just processing, because changing locks without telling someone, that's not an accident. That's a decision, a very intentional one. I knocked once, then again, and after a few seconds, the door opened. My stepmother stood there calmly, too calmly, like she'd been expecting me. "Oh," she said casually, "you're back, back, not home, back." That wording mattered. I looked at her, then at the new lock again. "You changed the locks?" She crossed her arms slowly. "Yes, simple, no explanation, no apology, just certainty." For a moment, I honestly thought there had been some kind of emergency, a break-in maybe, something reasonable. But then she said, "You can't stay here anymore," and suddenly everything became clear, not confusing, not emotional, just clear. I stared at her for a second, certain I heard wrong. "What?" She sighed dramatically, like I was making this difficult already. "Your father and I discussed it," she continued. "We think it's best if you move on." Move on? Interesting phrase. People use soft language when they're doing ugly things. I looked past her instinctively. The house looked exactly the same. My father's chair, the hallway lamp, even my shoes near the stairs. Everything familiar, except suddenly I was being treated like a stranger, standing outside it. "Where's Dad?" I asked. "He's resting." Of course he was. Convenient timing. "I want to talk to him." "That's not necessary." That line changed everything, because once someone starts controlling access to people, to conversations, to information, they're hiding something, and suddenly I noticed something else. Behind her confidence, there was impatience, like she wanted this finished quickly, before questions started, before reality interrupted her version of events. "I live here," I said, calmly. She tilted her head slightly. "Not anymore." Simple, cold, practiced, and that part mattered too, because this conversation didn't feel spontaneous. It felt prepared, like she rehearsed it already, maybe multiple times. Looking back now, the signs were obvious long before that night. The private conversations that stopped when I entered rooms, the paperwork disappearing from kitchen counters whenever I walked in, the way she started referring to the house as hers. At the time, I ignored it, because some people don't expect betrayal from family until family becomes the source of it. "You can stay somewhere else tonight," she continued. "As if this is temporary," I replied, quietly. That made her expression shift slightly, because she expected emotion, begging, confusion, not calmness. People become uncomfortable when you stay calm during betrayal, because calm people observe, and observers notice things, like the fact she never once said, "My father wanted me gone," directly, only vague phrases. "We discussed it. We think. It's best." That language matters. A lot. I stepped back slowly from the door, not defeated, just thinking, because something about this situation felt incomplete, legally incomplete, and that feeling stayed with me, strongly. The house originally belonged to my grandmother, not my father. That detail suddenly felt important, very important, and strangely, I remembered something my grandmother told me years earlier. You should always know whose name is on things. At the time, it sounded random, old-fashioned even, but standing outside that locked door, those words came back clearly, like a warning, arriving late. My stepmother sighed again, impatiently. I really don't want this to become dramatic. I almost laughed, because people love calling consequences drama, especially after creating the situation themselves. I looked directly at her, then asked quietly, "Are you absolutely sure you want to do this?" She didn't hesitate. Yes, that confidence. It told me something important. She believed she had power, complete power, and people only act that boldly when they think the situation protects them, legally, financially, emotionally. But confidence means nothing if it's built on the wrong assumption. And suddenly, I had a feeling she forgot one very important detail: whose name was actually on the deed. I didn't argue with her that night, didn't force the door, didn't create a scene, because something inside me kept repeating the same thought. This doesn't feel legal, and feelings like that matter, especially when they arrive quietly. I picked up my bag again, looked at the house one last time, then walked away calmly, not because I accepted what happened, because I was thinking, clearly, carefully, and the more I thought about it, the stranger everything became. My grandmother was careful with everything, especially property. She trusted almost nobody completely, not even family. And suddenly, I remembered something else. Years ago, after one long conversation about inheritance, she laughed softly and said, "People become very confident when they think something belongs to them." At the time, I didn't understand what she meant. Now, I understood perfectly. The next morning, I went straight to the county records office. Not emotional, not angry, just precise. Because if someone locks you out of a house, the first thing you check is ownership, not feelings, facts. The woman behind the desk asked for the address, typed quietly for a few seconds, then paused. That pause mattered immediately, because people pause differently when something unexpected appears. "Is there a problem?" I asked calmly. She looked up at me. "No, it's just..." Another pause. Then, "The property isn't under your father's name." There it was. That sentence. The one I somehow already knew was coming. I stayed quiet, waiting, because clarity works best when uninterrupted. "It's under yours," she finished. Simple, direct, complete. And suddenly, everything made sense. Not emotionally, legally. My grandmother never transferred the house to my father. She transferred it directly to me years earlier. Quietly, without announcement, without family discussion, without giving anyone the chance to interfere. I almost smiled, not because I felt victorious, because suddenly I understood my grandmother completely. She knew exactly what kind of people she was leaving behind. The clerk printed the documents for me, and when she handed them over, I stared at my name for a long moment. Owner, not future owner, not partial owner, owner, completely, legally, irrevocably. And that's when something shifted inside me, because the night before, my stepmother looked at me like I was powerless, temporary, disposable. But now, I understood something clearly. She locked the actual owner out of their own house. Looking back now, that level of confidence is almost impressive. Almost, because arrogance makes people careless, and careless people forget details, important details, like paperwork. I left the records office calmly. No dramatic reaction, no emotional phone calls, just clarity, pure clarity. And clarity changes everything, especially your timing. I didn't go back immediately. That part surprised even me, because once you know the truth, you don't rush. You plan, and I wanted this handled correctly, completely, not emotionally, professionally. So I made one phone call, then another, and by the next afternoon, everything was ready. I returned to the house around sunset, same driveway, same front porch, same new locks. But this time, I wasn't standing there uncertain. I was standing there informed. That changes your posture completely. My stepmother opened the door almost immediately, like she'd been watching for me. Her expression shifted the second she saw me. Not fear, annoyance. You need to stop coming here, she said instantly. Interesting. Not, what do you want? Not confusion, just control, or at least an attempt at it. I looked at her calmly, then held up the folder slightly. We need to talk. Her eyes moved to the documents, and for the first time since this started, she looked uncomfortable. Real uncomfortable. That won't be necessary, she replied quickly. That line alone told me everything, because confident people don't avoid paperwork. Only people who already know they're wrong do that. I checked the property records, I said calmly. Silence. Immediate. Her face changed slightly, just enough, and that tiny reaction confirmed everything. You changed the locks on a house you don't own, I continued, slowly, clearly, precisely. She stared at me, not speaking, because suddenly the situation had changed. Completely. You're lying, she whispered finally. I shook my head once, then handed her the documents. Read the name. She didn't take them immediately. That part mattered, because people hesitate when they already know what they'll see. Finally, she grabbed the papers quickly, looked down, and everything drained from her face. Completely. No confidence, no control, no rehearsed speech, just shock, pure shock.